Did you win anything, Miss Kathleen? Did you get
Good morning, good people. So glad you all could join today. Good morning, good morning. Welcome in. Good morning, everybody.
Good morning. Don't know how to get to the video portion.
Hey, good morning. Can you see us okay, or were you trying to turn on your video?
No, I can't see you. I may need to go out and come back in.
Huh.
Let
Okay.
me let me try that.
Okay. Good morning, everybody. Is anybody having any trouble accessing the video, or is the audio coming in okay? Can somebody just give me a thumbs up and let me know, just so that we can make sure that Michael's experience isn't everyone's experience? Okay, perfect. Hey, good morning. Good morning, Ashley. Good morning, Shamika. Hey, everybody. So glad you all could join us today. Gonna give people some time to come in, but if anybody wants to come off mute and say hey to the village, feel free to do so. Just want to give people some time to join in so that you guys aren't missing any information.
Hey everybody, good morning. This is Santoria. Hi everybody. Just want to
Hey.
stop by and say hello.
So glad to hear from you today. How are you feeling? Let us know how you're recovering, how you're feeling.
I'm doing good. I'm walking. God is good. I'm
Hey,
recovering good.
That's good. We're so glad to hear it. We're so glad to have you on the call. Glad you're feeling better.
From first part, all of the timber paneling and the balustrading.
This is Ann. I'm saying hey to the village.
Hi, Miss Ann. I saw the
Hi.
email. I'm so sorry that you couldn't make it yesterday, but I'm so glad that you're safe. I know driving in Nashville can be crazy, so I'm so glad that you're okay.
Thank you so much. I had a flat tire for everybody and I'm all well, but hello to the village. I love the village. And corner to corner, I can't wait to pray with you later. Just saying.
We're so excited for all the things happening. If you guys, just to give some context, we had an in-person workshop yesterday, that was led by Erica. We had such an amazing time. It was so insightful. As you all know, anything coming from Erica's mind, Erica's hand is just an amazing time to just sit in and get some wealth of knowledge. So we had a communications workshop yesterday. Hopefully you guys can attend many more of the things that we'll be hosting, but Miss Ann couldn't make it, and so that was just a little backstory to what that was. And I know we got a few emails of people that couldn't make it, and so we did record a few highlights that I'll be making public via our YouTube page if you couldn't make it and you wanted to. So definitely check that out. But if anybody wants to come off mute before we get things started.
Hello, this is Shamika with Home of Potential Excellence. Just saying hello to the village. It's been a while, and I'm glad I'm able to get my schedule a little balanced so I can hop on and miss it. So thank you all for all that you do to support our organizations.
Thank you, Shamika. It was so fun spending time with y'all for the brunch. I think that was the first time I had gotten a chance to see you guys in a while. And I always love connecting with y'all. So I'm so glad that you guys could make it. Hey, Kara.
Hey,
Um,
y'all. Hello,
thanks for
hello.
the update.
Tom.
I said, thanks for dropping that update in the chat. Is it two different links in the newsletter or do you know if it's the news?
No, it's not the newsletter. I clicked on the one and I thought I updated it in my calendar, and I clicked on the one that's on my calendar. And that's it must be an old one. And I thought I updated it, but clearly I didn't. And it was some other people over there too. So I'm kind of glad that I went over there so we could figure it out together. Yep.
Okay.
So they should be on their way.
Okay, thank you so much. Y'all know that we're trying to fix the problem of not having different links floating around. And so we're trying to get it to where it just creates the same link and everybody is on one calendar invite. And so we send the same link to everyone. And on our Zoom account, it's the same recurring links, but for some reason, there's been a few links floating around, so that's definitely a problem that we're just trying to rectify. And so it's taking us a bit of time some weeks it happens and some weeks it doesn't. So we're just trying to, rectify that. But thank you all for being so patient with us. And Kara, thank you for helping us rectify that.
No problem.
So I do want to honor you guys' time. And I'm so excited for our host that we have today, just because she is so experienced and she has done so many projects with a few of our village members. And so I do want to honor her time. And so Emily, if you are ready to start your presentation, you want to mind giving me a thumbs up? Okay, perfect. And so I am going to give Emily co-hosting privileges, and I'm going to give her the stage and the microphone so that she can get her presentation started. And I'll be keeping an eye on the chat if anybody needs anything.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Shekinah. And it is so great to see everyone here. Some of my former clients and friends are here. Some people who I have just heard about through their wonderful reputations in the community are here. So it's great to put some names to faces and see some of the people that I've been able to work with over the past, I guess, almost 3 years with the village. And I just wanted to start by saying, and I'll bring this up a couple of times as people come in. This is a presentation I wanted to make to you all about the services that I offer through the village, and how we can work together as collaborators through the village. But I know that there is a lot of questions, anxiety, misinformation, information floating around about the federal funding freeze that happened yesterday. And so at the end of my presentation this morning, I sat down and just put pen to paper with some initial thoughts. I'm not an expert by any means, but I just wanted to provide as much clarity as I can about what might be happening with your clients, with your funding, with your organizations. So at the end of the presentation, we're going to all go through that as well. And feel free to think of any questions that you might have for me then. But I'm going to start my slideshow in the meantime. Oh, sorry, I have to open my system settings, it looks like. 1 second. There we go. It should work in 1 second. I might send, it looks like I might quit for 1 second and come right back. I'm sorry about this. Otherwise, I cannot share my screen. 1 second.
No worries, Emily. While you're out, does anybody have any questions, any initial thoughts or any initial things? I know Emily, a few guys that Emily has worked with, she invited on the call just to talk a little bit about your experience working with Emily. And so I think that might be a good way to just kind of give people an initial idea of the work that she does. If anybody wants to come off mute and share your experience that you've had working with Emily.
I'm sorry, you go ahead. Okay. So yeah, I'm Michael Greenwood, Executive Director and founder of Humble Beginnings. I've had a great experience working with Emily. She's helped our organization grow immensely. She's been great at not only walking us through how to fill out grants, but also helping us find more grants that fit our organization and our organization's mission. She's very good at, like I say, just really simplifying what all of the grant questions are. Sometimes it can be overwhelming when you look at a grant and their proposal and they're asking for so many different things and some of the questions seem redundant. So it can be a bit overwhelming because you don't want to get anything wrong. And so in our experience, she has absolutely been great at, like I say, not only helping us get grants, but helping us find grants as well.
Thank you for sharing that, Michael.
Thank you, Michael. What is better than leaving a room and coming back and people are speaking nicely about you? All right, I'm going to try one more time to share my screen. And if it doesn't work because my computer is screwy, I will just do my very best to read off the slides myself.
And Emily, if you need to email me the slide deck, that might also work a little bit better as well if you have some tech issues. But
Oh, look at that. Here we go. So here is our opening question. I would just love to poll everyone in the group for a second. And Shekinah, maybe you can help by calling on people because I can't see everyone at once. I would just like to know, and you can also put it in the chat, what do you consider your biggest barrier to fundraising for your organization? And what do you find most frustrating when you're applying for fundraising for your organization? Feel free to drop it in the chat. as well?
For me, sometimes it is finding new new donors or connecting with the traditional ones that have donated to my organization. Sometimes those traditional sponsors have maybe they're not in business anymore, or maybe they have cut their funding for certain programs that we were getting X amount of dollars for, and now we're getting a significantly smaller amount for. And then during the process, some of them, they just ask some of the questions on there are silly questions sometimes. Um, so that those are some challenges, and just getting, if we're having like a big fundraiser, just getting it out to the masses and getting a good response from the community.
Natalie, out of curiosity, what would you say is a question that you find silly that they're asking?
So they'll ask, what are you going to do with the funds? And you say it, and then they ask that question again. I just said on there what I was planning on doing. So you ask again, like later on down in the application. Yeah.
So just redundancy and feeling like your time isn't really being respected, or that their system isn't streamlined enough for you to navigate.
Yes, absolutely.
Right. Anyone else? Centauria is saying meeting eligibility requirements, if you understand the funding criteria, if our programs align with funders, or if you need to have staff to meet the goals. Yolanda's asking, what was the question? The question is just, what is your biggest frustration around finding new sources of fundraising? So what Centauria is talking about is something that you see a lot, is that there might be a funder, but they have either requirements that prohibit you from applying. So it might be like a minimum budget for an organization. It might be something like needing an audit when you haven't had an audit complete and it doesn't make sense for the size of your organization. So these can be big challenges that grassroots funders face, having the knowledge of where to apply, how to kind of maybe either finesse the criteria or understand when you do or don't meet the criteria, or just like not wasting your time. Yeah. Kara, would you like to explain yours?
Yeah, because I was, and that's a good one. I was listening to what you were saying. I'm going through this now with targeting major donors, right? Those donors that are willing to write a big check. With donors that tend to have, which tends to be on a certain wealth scale, a certain level in wealth, and they tend to reflect the population that we serve, they don't have the capacity to write the major checks at times. We haven't been able to target those. And the ones that can write the major checks are not directly connected to the work. So they don't, the messaging has not resonated enough for them to understand the true impact, because they're not connected. I don't have to spend a bunch of time telling other Black folks why we need this service. However, major donors want to understand from their pockets what the return on investment is for them, and to craft a message that connects them to the work has been our challenge, because we spend a lot of unnecessary time trying to show that return, because, and that's the messaging piece. So really, if that makes sense, and I don't do, but if you understand what I'm saying, really connecting.
Absolutely.
Okay.
I absolutely, and
yeah, so
I will definitely have worked with organizations before, kind of trying to hone and craft their messaging, because working with donors is kind of like, they're all different and they're all looking for something different. So one of the things I work with my clients on is really taking the time to go through a donor's website, look at the language they use, look what they think their priority is, and crafting the application to the kind of the priorities and like the personality, so to speak, of the funder. It's almost like dating or sending out resumes. You know, you're not going to send out the same resume and cover letter to every job. But that's definitely something that we can talk about and something I work on with my clients. So, Kara, let's put a pin in that because I think we'll come back to that. And then Ashley is saying, sometimes I feel like the required deliverables aren't worth the amount being granted. And that is absolutely legitimate. And I know as a former program director, I have in the end given up some funding because what is required, you know what I mean, is like, I need to know the sexual orientation of the parents of all the kids receiving free lunch at 30 community centers. This is just not worth it to me. So this is very relatable. I'm going to start going into the services that I offer the villages. The
Can I
village.
pause you for a second? I think Yolanda has her hand raised, and I don't want to go over if she does have a question. Yolanda, did you
Thank
come
you.
up?
I did, and thanks for putting this on, and thank you, Ms. Kimberly Cox, for tapping me in. My question is, there seems to be a lot of paid sites for you to go to find funding
Mhm.
or to get the funding that have a monthly charge. That's what I'm finding. And those sites allow you to really do targeted search for the type of grants
Yeah.
that align with your organizations. How do we overcome those fees? How do we know where to go to even find grants?
So I can speak to that a little bit. And I don't know, Shekinah, if the village has their own login for any grant searching sites. Center for Nonprofit Management might also have some that you can use. Yolanda, you are welcome to email me after this call or drop your email in the chat, and I will send you my login to Tennessee Grant Watch so you can use it. If I'm paying $300 a year for something, I want everyone to be using it. But just to go through this really quickly, I think it's great to have a login to one of those places, but they are expensive. So it's even something that you can, if you have a couple friends who run nonprofits, you can go on it together. You can check through the library. You can email me. I also apply to Youth Today, which can be a good service for people serving youth. I do think they're good resources. They're not the end all be all. And it's not really as simple as, you know, putting in your criteria. It's a lot of work, and you'll find like, oh, great, youth, you know, grants for Tennessee. And then you'll see it's just for zoos in Knoxville. And there's a lot of stuff out there. So it really does require a lot of time and expertise for grant searching. I know in April, I will be doing kind of a takeover of village calls with 4 mini sessions about grant writing. And if grant searching is a big priority, that's one of the sessions that we can definitely do. I think that was kind of our plan anyway, just to show you guys what is out there. But it's definitely a job unto itself. And I'll talk also about how I work on that with my clients. So I just put together some common issues I feel like my clients face in Nashville, clients in the village, and other clients I work with. So I think that kind of has been all talked about here, but we have lack of knowledge. So not knowing where to start, feeling like you have started this great organization, but this is kind of a new world that you're not familiar with. Lack of experience, so you've just never done it before, and lack of connections. The village is a group of grassroots organizations that are Black led, and by that very definition, you're not going to have the connections that other organizations might have, and that's something that we need to surmount and create equity with. A lack of confidence is something I see. Sometimes people have all the tools they need to apply. They just don't know that they have the tools. And I work with them on building their confidence and their sense of empowerment and their intuition so that they really feel like they can get out there and start asking for what their organization deserves. And then the last thing is just a lack of time. Like, I'm sure all of you are stretched super thin, and you might just not have the time, like I talked about with the grant searching. All of this takes a lot of time, and you might not have the time to search for grants, meet with foundations, look for funding opportunities because you're so stretched with the day-to-day of your organization and working with your clients. So these are all things that I help out with. Just quick background on me. I am a community services professional. I'm a grant writer. I'm a fundraiser, and I do a lot of education as well around fundraising. And really my bread and butter that I love to work with is small organizations, $100,000 a year budget or less. This is just my passion area. It started when I worked for the city of Boston. I ran their own grants program, kind of similar to the one with Metro Nashville. And I saw that grassroots organizations working on the community level were making the most impactful change, but they were getting the least amount of money because funders weren't respecting their impact just because of their low budgets. I also have a lot of experience on the program side. I ran a grocery delivery program for seniors. I ran a youth volunteering program. I ran a childhood anti-obesity program. I think we all know working in nonprofit that you wear so many hats and you've got a lot of experience. So I kind of have experience on both sides of the table. And I think that's helpful because I understand the needs of my clients and who they serve. And like we said before, when we were talking about what are the reporting requirements, if the reporting requirements are so onerous that it's not even worthwhile to apply, I kind of understand what it's like on the ground and why that can be challenging. And I specialize in programs around human services, youth services, public health, and violence prevention. But if that doesn't cover your organization, I'm a quick learner and I am open to working with every type of client. And in the more than 10 years I have been in nonprofit, I have raised $4.5 million and still growing. So I'm really proud of that number and its impact on my clients. Since I started working with the Village, I've secured more than 30 grants for Village members. The average Village member who works with me will secure at least a 10-time return on their investment or the Village's investment. So that means if you invest $600 with me, you're going to get $6,000 or more back. Usually it's way more than that 10-time multiplier. But I think when you're talking about grants, it's not always the size of the grant, because you could secure a $50,000 grant and a $1 million grant. But if you get a $50,000 grant for an organization that's always had a $10,000 budget, that's actually what's more transformative. And I will say also, most of the clients I have worked with, starting at the Village with the Village covering my consulting fees and consulting packages, have gone on to hire and work with me on their own since they started with me with the Village. So I would say about 75% of my clients who I work with at the Village, I have a professional relationship with beyond the scope of that contract. What services do I provide? My bread and butter is grant writing. So that's research, planning, writing for organizations. And I do every type of funding. So foundation funding, city and state funding. I do a lot of corporate and corporate responsibility. Federal grants, I have done. We're going to talk about that later. The majority of clients I serve in the Village aren't big enough for federal grants, and I don't suggest applying for them. Although there's always, wiggle room on that, but who knows what's about to happen. I also help with other fundraising activities. So that could be working on crowdfunding campaigns. It could be helping you work with individual donors. It could be helping you make corporate partnerships. I don't do so much around event planning and fundraisers and like securing sponsorships for that. I do it sometimes, but it's not where I can best serve you. And then there's the executive coaching, which is talking with people who are founders and CEOs of their nonprofits and helping them build their own fundraising skills and build their confidence so that they can serve their organization to the best of their ability. And education. So I teach grant writing and fundraising. Both I've done workshops for the whole village. I've also come into organizations and run fundraising workshops for just their staff and their board members. And this is a photo of me when I was, I think, 5 or 6 months pregnant, running a workshop for the village with a lot of people. This was 2 summers ago, and we had the best time. And so what I'm passionate about is really working with you guys and making an impact. This is just a list of some of the Nashville orgs I've worked with. A lot of the people are on the call today, which makes me so happy. And then here are some of the grants I've secured for my clients focusing on Nashville. We've got a lot of traction with the Healing Trust, with the Community Foundation, with NASA, the Emmett DHA Summer Grant, Josie Davis, Bonnaroo Works, the Metro Health Department, the Predators, and more. But these are the big local funders. And I have been able to work with my village clients to get more than 30 grants with these funders who I think should be the target, really, of small organizations in Nashville. Beyond just trying to get you money, my goals for every client I work with are making sure that you feel empowered and educated and knowledgeable through us working together. So you leave the process of working with me, not just with a deliverable, like 3 grants written, but like understanding a lot more the full process of grant seeking. Another thing that I always respect is the expertise of my clients. You might not know about what I do, but I don't know about what you do necessarily, and you do what you do best. So I love to take the time to sit down with you and hear about what you do, and always respect both your expertise as organization leaders and also making sure that as we're telling the story of your clients that we're respecting their dignity, so that we're telling their stories in a positive and empowering way, showing the change that you make in their lives rather than portraying them negatively or saying they're getting a handout. So my goal is always, if a client were to read this grant, they would walk away feeling good about themselves. And final thing I always try to do for my clients is make sure that your time and your budget are valued. So I'm not going to waste your time applying for something I don't think is a good fit for you. And I'm always going to tell you why. And that's part of the educational component. So it might be a no from me, but you're always going to know why. And then that way I'm just making the best use of the village's funds and your time. So how can we work together? Because I know there's a lot of differing levels of experience here. And the first step, and Shekinah can also talk about that more, reaching out to her and talking about collaborating. But if you're just starting out, you've never applied for a grant, you've never applied for a fundraiser before, some of my clients, I start with them, every single thing their organization has ever done, they've paid for out of pocket. So we can start by just having a meeting as a consultant, talking about fundraising strategy, having some time to get together, identifying some opportunities to raise funds, low-hanging fruit, what's going to be the easiest thing for you, and also creating a budget together so that you can set goals on how you're going to raise funds. That's really important to know, to not just be fundraising willy-nilly, to know what you're looking for. If you have grants, but you're not sure how to apply, you can send those grants to me and we will review them together, and I will both write an application for you and work with you to make a budget for that grant. And usually those budgets are things that you can use again and again. And then Kara, what you were talking about earlier, having the development materials already, but feeling like maybe you're not telling your story and the way that is resonating with funders, we can get together. I can do a review on your development materials, give you feedback on what I think is working and not working. And then we can create something I call a grant package, what I love to make, which is kind of standard language for grants that answer the very basic questions that you can use again and again. So if you feel like you have the knowledge to apply for your own grants, it's essentially a copy paste job where you're using the language we made together and you're not having to pay for a grant writer over and over, but you know you're putting your best foot forward and using the best language to represent yourself that you can. I'm seeing a question from Ashley. Do you also help for-profit businesses apply for grants? I try to right now, just because I have limited time, work with nonprofits, because business grants usually have a ton of applicants and it's not really like what I'm most successful at. So it's usually a national application pool. So in the future, it might be something I do, but it's not my area of most expertise. So I often suggest that people work with a grant writer that specializes in working with businesses. So I'm just gonna open the room for questions, and you guys feel free to throw out if you have, you know, something that you're thinking about and how, you know, would we be able to work together on that, or any questions about how I work, or any questions about how the consulting process works.
I have a question. Thank you for that. I love your delivery and the intentionality behind the work that you're doing. I hear a couple of opportunities with what you said. The question I have too is, do you use a standard grant readiness framework that we could use to even just get ready to have the conversation with you? I know sometimes, so I can speak for our organizations. I've wrote grants over the last 10 years, and some of my board members have. And I'm looking to turn that whole ministry over to somebody else. I've met with a couple, and a lot of time just going through, like, I've been doing this for 10 years. There's a level that I'm on that I don't have to spend a lot of time with, like, the basic framework. Like, we have documentation, we have things that we have used. So is there any framework or something that just says, so like, these are the things that I would want you to have, so that there's a readiness that I can have to come into the conversation?
I don't have that, but I am going to make that because I think that's a fantastic idea. That's a really good idea, and that is something that I'm going to create. So thank you for that. And I do want to say also, like, I have done education before, like, not just meeting eventually with the client. Obviously you want to meet with the client first, but meeting with the whole board to discuss I would say both the process and also expectations, because that board buy-in can be some of the hardest thing, you know, and you have a lot of people saying, oh, I'll write you a grant. And then when things shake out, you're on your own again. So that can be something that we definitely discussed too. And it seems like specifically, Kara, for you, almost like the best way to start might be with like a couple of hours just to chat and regroup and think about like what your next steps would be. So that's something that we can definitely work on together.
Yeah, thank you for that. And just a quick question too. I'm sorry, you may have said this, but do you work on the strategy end of that too? Like, I think that's what I need
Yep.
too, is just like the strategy of targeting, individual major corporations, things of that nature. The strategy is I got some implementers. I think we struggle more on the strategy piece of it. Yeah.
Yeah, and I have made a lot of custom solutions for people. For example, I worked with a group in the village and we made a calendar of all the funding opportunities that they were going to look into for the full year, and included on that like the money in and out for the full year, because they wanted to see like, are we going to run out of money this year, and what do we have to do to stay afloat with our rate of cash burn. So it's like very customized, but if I were just writing grants, I would be a freelancer, but I view myself as a consultant because I bring that strategy aspect to things and thinking about the best allocation of your time, who's the best fit for you, and how you're going to use your precious development time. Because, the 40 or 50 hours that you put into fundraising for one event might be better spent applying for 10 grants, or you might get the same amount of money applying for one grant. So it's just really important to be strategic in making those plans and not applying for things willy-nilly. And I have a text from Centauria here. We were able to talk after applying grants and decide to regroup and be really strategic in our approach to making a 3-year plan for her organization. So it wasn't so piecemeal, because what I find is like, if you have a plan of how much you want to raise, and B, have a plan of how much you need, things are going to go so much better and you're going to be so much more directed in your time. If you're just looking for money any which way you can, it's just not going to be the same, or you're going to wind up with a bunch of, how many people have worked at a larger nonprofit where you wound up with a bunch of small, weird programs because the donor was willing to give you money. It's never renewed. What was all that time for? So I think it's funny because I'm going to talk about this in my regroup of the information on the federal grant too. Is like, sometimes we all just need to like stop and breathe and take a moment to look towards the future, rather than doing what we're used to doing, which is like problem solving, putting our thumbs in different holes that are sprouting in a dam, which is how, a lot of the time you need to live. But I think it's worthwhile to take that time and be intentional, especially if you're getting assistance from the village, to really take your organization to the next step. I see a question from Nicole.
Thank you so much for that.
Okay. Hello, Village. I was typing it in the chat. Thank you. So, as a person that's written a lot of grants and helped others, one thing that I've done and suggested is to have a plug and play kind of executive summary, because most grants are asking in the basics for that particular information around the organization. And then you can put in the criteria of what the grant is asking for. So I wanted your feedback on that, if that's something, that you do with your clients, or just your feedback.
Yep, that's something I do. Is I think I talked earlier about the grant package, giving them the canned standard language. I call it canned, it's not canned. And then what we'll do is we might meet and go over the upcoming grant schedule and pick the ones that really are, I call it a copy paste job, that you can fill out yourself without using your resources, and which ones are different enough or ask different enough questions or require so much. I mean, a lot of what I do is filling out forms and making forms and tracking down documents. What's so time consuming or different that it's worthwhile for me to step in and work on that grant. So if my clients feel confident and feel like they have the capabilities, we make that initial package together, and then we split up from there responsibility. So that's a really smart move for an organization. Absolutely.
Hey, Emily, can I give a quick testimony?
Of course.
Look, I just want to encourage you all. I've been working with Emily for over 3 years now. Um, and of course, I met her through the village, and it's been truly a blessing. But some of the things I really want to talk about real shortly is about the self development that I actually grew into while working with her. When it comes down to the strategic plan, it was important for me to take that course. It was 8 hours that I sat with a consultant, and it really helped me create a plan for my programming because when I got into this world of nonprofit, I went in with, oh, I'm gonna do this and I'm gonna do that. This is my passion because I actually lived that experience, right? I had a vision, but I really didn't have a great plan for it. So I think it was important for me to dive deep in to understand why I'm really doing this and why the vision is important. Because I had such a low budget. I had this big dream and I was expecting I'm gonna apply for this grant, I'm gonna get it, but it did not work like that. And so the framework came for me, it's like doing the work, but not being all over the place anymore. Because when I started it, I was all over the place. I wanted to do this, I wanted to do that. But I had to align the program with the vision and the mission and the vision of Path to Beauty, and that was important. That's why it's so important for me to joint venture with other organizations that's doing the work, so we could come together and maybe even doing a workshop once a month where we research grants and present it to Emily on things that we feel like align with the mission and visions of our organization and programming. And so that was so important for me. And I think a lot of us suffer with like board leadership and trying to build a strong board. And that was kind of one of my deals that I'm trying to figure out ways to create a stronger board. So my experience with Emily has been amazing because I learned a lot. Because I know a lot of times as EDs, we become emotional in this work. And when we are emotional, we can't really do the work because we all over the place. So we have to build that emotional leadership to a stronger, stronger, like, I guess, path to become stronger in this work. Because this work ain't no joke. And because I lived the experience, I'm a survivor of domestic violence. It is definitely sincere to me. So I just want to encourage y'all to create a strategic plan to help guide you all because it's important to do that because we don't want to waste funding from the village, even doing the consulting work. Like it's important that we know why we're doing it and what we need to do to push that vision out so we can get funded. And I appreciate you, Emily, for helping guiding us.
Thank you, Centauria. And Centauria actually was my first ever client. And so I'm so grateful to her. Before I even worked with the village, actually, we worked together. Does anyone have any other questions? And I am going to drop my email into the chat if you have more questions about working with me, or if you think we might be a good fit and that might be something you want to pursue through the village, to reach out to Shekinah to talk about that more. But I am very available to talk. And then if there are no more questions about that, I have prepared a presentation because I know there are going to be so many questions about the federal funding freeze or non-freeze that we can all go over. But I actually see a hand raised from CJ.
Hi, everybody. Hi, Emily. Emily, thank you for the presentation. I have been working with Emily for a few years now, and it's been awesome. Thank you. I mean, it's been a blessing. I think Kara answered some of the questions I already had, which is thank you, Kara. And then the other question I had was increasing budget. Um, Working with that, I love how you said that, we create like like you create a 3-year plan and and we can say, okay, this is how we're going to fundraise for that. I want to start that over with you. I really do, because I feel like I'm at a point where I'm stagnant, and I don't want that to be a continuation of where I've been. It's like, okay, we're doing the same every year. You mentioned earlier that you have a website which you use. I don't know if you mentioned like Grant Station. Like I have a login for Grant Station, which I do, and it's so hard navigating through that.
Yeah.
And when I say it's like a million things out there, even when I filter like Tennessee, what works for me,
Yeah.
it's a lot. So I really want to be able to do a one-on-one so we can kind of work on future planning and how we can change, because again, every year I don't want to feel like, oh, I plan on raising 80 grand and I raise just half of that.
Yeah.
I want to know, okay, how am I gonna do this for next year and do better? Like, so that's my goal. That's my plan, and that's the way that's what I'm want to do with you.
I think, but it's funny because both of what you said and what I'm about to say in my presentation about the federal
Oh,
grant is
sorry.
no, is the benefit of like stopping and taking a pause and thinking about your organization's needs instead of doing what we're so used to, which is being really reactionary, and being all things to all people, and seeing so many issues in our community that we have to solve, that we don't take a second to stop and think about like, what is my slice of responsibility and how am I going to do it well? And because we're all used to like taking care of other people, and and doing everything for everyone and being all things to all people. So I totally get it. That's gonna transition me right into the talk about the federal funds, but I don't have anywhere to be, so I'm happy to be on this call to answer questions both about that and consulting as long as we need. So hold on, let me bring back up my presentation. So how is the federal funding pause going to affect me and my organization? I want to start by saying this. I am a fundraising grant writing expert. I am so confused. I don't know what's happening. No one I talk to knows what's happening. The people I know who are lawyers with specialty in the federal government don't know what's happening. So it's been 2 days. We don't know how this is going to shake out. If you feel confused, it's because they want you to be confused. So keep all that in mind as we begin, and make sure to practice literacy in who you are hearing information from, because everyone is on Facebook. There's a woman in my neighborhood, and like, this is the most good-hearted thing in the universe. She writes, I hear they're canceling the free lunch program. Anyone who needs lunch tomorrow, please contact me, which is like so wonderful of her, but they're not canceling the free lunch program. And so we all need to just be mindful about where we're looking to for information, and kind of taking that breath and pause for just to make sure that we're not reacting too quickly, because I've been going crazy. My husband literally took my phone from me last night. He said, Emily, you're on a subreddit called Reddit/financial collapse. You've had enough. You're cut off. So I've definitely been there. Here's what won't be affected for now. Absolutely. And I think a lot of your clients are probably asking questions about this. Medicare, food stamps, Head Start, school feeding programs, which are actually run through the USDA, I believe, rental assistance, and federal student loans won't be affected at this time. There was misinformation because all the portals for those services went down yesterday. That's because they're incompetent. But as of right now, that type of aid government to individual aid won't be affected. It doesn't mean it won't be affected in the future. We're just talking about this specific executive order. One of the most important things, and we talked about this before, is being planful and deliberate in how we plan for a possible cut in funding or how we're reacting to our community. I worked at another organization. There was that federal freeze 2 years ago where all the federal workers were out of work. Everyone in the organization mobilized really quickly. They spent $5,000. They had 30 volunteers come in and cook meals for all the affected federal, workers. What we came to find out was that federal workers can't accept free food. So nobody came and all the food wound up going to the food pantry. So I just tell that story that it's worth taking that breath and doing your research and being strategic when thinking about how this might affect you in the future. I will also say that make sure to communicate about all this with your staff. The way that you have questions, they have questions, and they probably aren't as experienced with understanding how this works as you are. So make sure to communicate with your staff. We don't have information yet. Nothing is set in stone. Right now, the whole federal funding pause is on pause because of lawsuits. We don't know when that pause will be unfrozen, if it will be unfrozen. So nobody should be fearing for their job yet. No one should be worried their program is going to be cut yet. You just really want to calm your staff and volunteers and make sure that everyone is in the know about what's happening, because I'm sure you're seeing a lot of people around you that might be freaking out about their job security. So that's really important. So here's who will be affected. This is directly from the council, the National Council of Nonprofits website. They have a great resource that Shekinah dropped into the chat that they update hourly on the effects of these executive orders. And what they say is that nonprofits who are partnering with federal government agencies or receiving federal funding, this means directly, especially through government grants and contracts, may experience longer wait times and slower processing, loss of points of contacts, or difficulty reaching them, and an increased strain on relationships. So all of that is to say that it's not like the tap is just going to be turned off and you're never going to get reimbursed or you'll never get your money back. But the person that you work with is in the dark and panicking too. So you're not going to be able to necessarily get the level of service that you're used to with them, the answers that you're used to with them, things processed the same way. Their resources may be cut. So just be mindful of that and patient. When you're thinking about your funding for next year, I do think it's wise to start thinking about how am I going to diversify who I'm applying with. So I'm getting money from more sources that aren't affected by this. One thing I'm very interested to see, and I don't know how many people have it here, is I know there's a lot of Justice Department and DOJ funding that goes to Nashville through the Nashville courts, especially around like youth violence prevention. I'm curious to see what happens with that in the future, because I know that actually some of this stuff, recidivism, and prison reform actually is a priority of the Trump administration. I don't know if that will change, but I just have questions about what will happen with that grant. So not all grants are created equally, but definitely keep following that Council of Nonprofit executive orders spreadsheet. It's really helpful. So here's something you might be more likely to receive. So you might receive funding from a program that receives federal funding that they then disperse. The big one I imagine affecting people is the 21st Century CCLC, which does after school funding for programs in Tennessee. That's through the state of Tennessee. Every state has one, or a lot of states have one, but they get that money federally and then they disperse it. Any grants you get through like a community block grant might be affected. So in those situations, expect a similar lack of communication and confusion as they try to figure out what's going on, but don't make assumptions, stopping your program because you feel like you're not going to get the money. Reach out to your contact there, ask them questions. They are the experts. It's their responsibility as the funder to relay to you what's going on and what changes you can expect. And again, it's time to absolutely look at some alternate funding sources, but the time is right now to plan and not act. So that means don't go cutting a program, don't go firing staff. Everything is up in the air right now. I'm seeing, sorry, I missed some questions. I'm going to read this really quickly if there's anything. Okay. If you receive private or foundation funding, feel free to ask your funder if they're going to be affected, but do your research first. So if you have a grant from, say, I'll give an example. My first thought was, what's going to happen with NASA? I went on the NASA website to see who their funders are. I saw that NASA doesn't receive federal funds. Their funds come from the Nashville Metro government, so the city government, and Nashville Public Schools. So NASA's not going to be affected. Again, it doesn't mean these things won't be affected in the future. It's just, before you reach out to a funder, because you want to appear informed and savvy, do that research yourself. If you have any questions, again, feel free, send me an email. I will help you out and take a look. Something great that you can do right now also is, if you have relationships with your big donors, communicate with them that you understand this is happening, that you are on top of it, making a plan. Say, this is how I foresee that my clients might be affected. This is how I foresee my funding might be affected. This just makes you look proactive and engaged. And it's a great way to show your board, your donors, or your foundation funders that you're on top of your game and that you're ready for whatever comes your way. No matter what happens with funding on the federal level, I think we can all agree that we're going to see an increase in client need in the coming months with what the Trump administration has in store. We might not know what that is yet, but we know that government assistance is going to be reduced. So it's great to think ahead on how might my clients be affected, and how are we going to pivot as an organization to meet that need, or increase our services to meet that need. So again, this is a good time to plan. And as you talk with your donors over the course of the year, as you apply for new grants, as you have check-in meetings with funders, as you make those asks for your organization, now is the time to ask for more money. You might not get it, but there is an obvious and demonstrable reason why you're going to need more funds. And a lot of funders are going to be very receptive to that. So if you have a meeting with a funder, they've always given you $20,000. When you go to renew that gift, renew that grant, say, hey, I actually need $25,000 this year because I predict that this program is going to be cut and that my clients are going to need, more food assistance, more rental assistance, more after school care. So, that's just making lemons out of lemonade. You're really, I think everyone in the next 4 years is really going to have to shift their focus towards fundraising more, because we're just going to see an increase in client need. Does anyone in the group have any questions about that? I know that was a lot of information. And I'll see, again, I'm not the expert on everything, but I'm going to help as much as I can. Thank you. Thank you so much, guys. And feel free to reach out to me, putting my email in the chat. And it was great to see you all, put some names to faces, meet some new people, and I hope to work with some of you.
Everybody, just to piggyback off of the note that Emalie just left off on, Tennessee Nonprofit Network also put together some pretty easily digestible language, and they put it in their newsletter. It was too big for me to include in the chat, but I will also include that, as well as some information that Emalie has provided in our newsletter, just for you all to be able to go back, reference some information, because we know that this is a lot to digest. Thank you all for being just so transparent and also patient with us. A lot of this, unfortunately, is a reaction to something that we did not plan for. And so, with that being said, we are bringing you guys resources as fast as we are getting them, because we are all receiving this information at the same time. And so, just thank you for just being patient with us, but we will also just be providing as many resources as we can, as we get them, just so that we are bringing you guys valid information, because we don't want to add to any panic that's already, I'm sure, happening in people's minds. I know the time is winding down. If you can stay on the call for questions or additional information that you guys need to provide, please do. If not, we completely understand. But we do want to honor your time. If you guys, I see some hands being raised. If you guys do need to come off mute, ask any additional questions, make any additional announcements, we'll, stay on for that. But if you do need to jump, I just wanted to preface that.
Hey, I have one question. And mine was in regards to the grant that was submitted last week, the proposal from the Michael Jordan piece. How valid is that particular grant? And I asked because when you open it up, it wasn't very clear, and there was a lot of grammatical errors in there. And then they're asking for some very sensitive information. So before completing something like that, I wanted to make sure that it was actually a legitimate and valid grant.
I actually reached out and had a point of contact with them last week for one of my clients. It is a real grant. The form I got was very strange in terms of not having an active link, but actually, if you wait 1 second, I can drop
I'm dropping the link in the chat.
Yeah,
for you.
thank you. The Cafe America link should kind of I think this is it. I had to reach out to them and ask. Yep. That is the link to the application. So I think, like, you were totally right to kind of have your hackles raised on that. But it does look like it is a legitimate grant, and I have been able to oh wow, she sent, you know what, I'm gonna do a little bit more digging on this. Can you make sure your email is in the chat, and so that I can reach out to you too?
Sure.
Thank you.
All right.
Hey guys, this is Ron Johnson. I gotta go, but I just want to say this about Emalie. Emalie and I met a bunch of years ago with my little nephew. Y'all know Mike Lacey. This is one of his best friends, and she has been helping so many people for us for so many years. And I just want to publicly say, Emalie, you are amazing. Congratulations on the new family member and all of that. And hey, your brother, I love you. Your brother love you. Love you,
Thank
love you,
you,
love you. Thank you.
Ron. That touches my heart.
And guys, I did want to say, Emalie does not live in Tennessee, and so
Yes, thank you.
I really wanted her to be able to just kind of touch base with you guys, facilitate, nurture a relationship with you guys, because unfortunately she is not located in Tennessee. And so the event that we have coming up, where you guys will be able to meet a lot of our consultants and speed date them and get to know them. Unfortunately, Emalie won't be physically present at that event. And so we just wanted to give you guys and Emalie an opportunity to really, get some one-on-one time that you may not be able to get with the other consultants that will be at this event. So when you don't see her face at that event, please do not let that discourage you. She is here. She is very present at the village. But if you are interested in doing some work with her, she has a consultant profile on our website, and reach out to me, please, because you won't see her physically at the event. Did anybody else want to come off mute before we head out to make any quick announcements? Going once, going twice. Okay, well, thank you all for joining in. Thank you guys so much for your time. Again, if you are interested in reaching out to Emalie regarding a consultant project that you are interested in the village underwriting, please reach out to me and let me know. Otherwise, Emalie's email is in the chat. It'll also be included in the newsletter that will go out so that you can contact her regarding any questions, all the things. We know everything is happening so fast with the current administration. We also know that people are mentally recovering from what just happened in Antioch. And so we are fully aware of all the things, all the mental battles that you guys are juggling, all the things while still trying to maintain what's happening in your own organization. And so we are here to support you guys. We may not have all the answers, but we are absolutely here to support y'all. And so we will just keep on fighting the good fight. But thank you always for joining this call, giving us an hour of your time. And if you need anything, please email me. All right, y'all, be safe, stay warm out there, and we will see y'all next week.